When Hollywood met WWE, the world expected fireworks, but what they got was a war nobody saw coming. The WWE universe had always thrived on spectacle, from box office megastars like The Rock to crossover icons like Ronda Rousey. Fans loved seeing legends from outside industries step into the squared circle. But when Steven Seagal, martial arts master, action movie icon, and a man who built his career on being the toughest guy in the room, walked into WWE, everything changed. At first, it seemed like a dream. The 6'4" Aikido master with decades of on-screen dominance looked like a natural fit for the world of sports entertainment. Vince McMahon had visions of bringing a true Hollywood action star into the mix, creating crossover magic that could rival Mike Tyson's legendary WrestleMania moment. But what nobody realized was that Steven Seagal didn't come to play wrestling. He came with his ego, his pride, and his reputation as an unstoppable force. And that was the exact recipe for disaster. When Seagal first appeared backstage at WWE, stories say the locker room froze. Superstars who had spent their lives training in the art of wrestling suddenly found themselves face-to-face with a man who believed he was the real deal. Unlike Tyson, who respected the culture of wrestling, Seagal didn't see it as an art form. He saw it as beneath him. Reports say he brushed off wrestlers who tried to welcome him, giving them cold stares and muttering lines like, "In the movies, I break arms for real. I don't fake it." That one sentence alone made enemies. Because in WWE, the locker room is built on respect. Respect for the grind, respect for the business, and most importantly, respect for the performers who risk their bodies every night. Seagal, he didn't show it. Clash with the veterans. The first real conflict came with The Undertaker. Mark Calloway, the dead man himself, was not just a locker room leader. He was the judge, jury, and executioner of respect in WWE. For decades, Undertaker had been the man who decided if newcomers could survive the backstage world. If you disrespected the business, you didn't last long. So when Seagal allegedly laughed during a production meeting, dismissing wrestling as stunt work for kids, Undertaker took it personally. One story from insiders says that Taker confronted Seagal directly, telling him, "In this ring, respect comes first. If you don't have that, you won't last a week." "I don't answer to men who wear costumes." That single line? It spread through the locker room like wildfire. From Shawn Michaels to Triple H, from Kane to Mick Foley. Suddenly, Steven Seagal wasn't just an outsider. He was the enemy. Originally, Vince McMahon had pitched the idea of a Steven Seagal cameo at WrestleMania. The plan was for him to appear ringside, maybe deliver a quick martial arts demonstration, and add some Hollywood shine to the event. But Seagal had other ideas. He demanded a full match. He wanted to be booked like a real fighter, crushing opponents in seconds with his Aikido throws. He allegedly refused to sell moves, telling producers, "I don't fall, I don't lose. That's not who I am." This threw WWE creative into chaos. Wrestling works on cooperation, on telling a story where both performers shine. But Seagal, he wanted domination, and that's when the hatred began to boil over. By this time, WWE's locker room was filled with hungry younger stars like Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, and Eddie Guerrero. These men had busted their bodies on the independent scene, fighting for scraps before earning their place under the bright lights. To them, Steven Seagal wasn't just disrespectful, he was dangerous. Because if a man refused to sell moves or cooperate, he could legitimately injure his opponent. Jericho was one of the loudest voices, reportedly saying backstage, "This guy thinks he's in one of his cheap movies. This isn't Hollywood, it's our lives." The idea of putting Seagal in the ring became toxic. Veterans hated him. Younger stars despised him. Even management started questioning if it was worth the trouble. But Vince McMahon? He saw dollar signs. Then came the promo that sealed Seagal's fate. During a live segment meant to hype his WWE involvement, Seagal went off script. Instead of praising the talent or hyping WrestleMania, he turned to the crowd and said, "I don't need to prove anything to these wrestlers. I've fought real fighters, I've broken real bones. This is child's play compared to what I've done." The arena went silent. The fans, who lived and breathed WWE, turned on him instantly. Boos rained down like thunder. Backstage, the hatred reached a breaking point. Triple H reportedly stormed to Vince's office, demanding that Seagal be cut from the show. Even Stone Cold Steve Austin, who had never backed down from anyone, said working with Seagal was a nightmare waiting to happen. Finally, the WWE locker room came together in rare unity. They delivered an ultimatum to Vince. Either Steven Seagal goes or we walk. That was it, the final straw. Vince, as much as he loved the controversy and the publicity, knew he couldn't sacrifice his entire roster for one Hollywood name. The WrestleMania match was scrapped. Steven Seagal quietly disappeared from WWE programming, never to return. But his reputation, it was cemented forever. The WWE locker room doesn't forget, and for years, whispers of the Seagal incident spread like legend. Steven Seagal thought he could walk into WWE and dominate like he dominated Hollywood. Instead, he left as one of the most hated men to ever set foot backstage. But this wasn't the end of his story, because years later, Seagal would resurface in a shocking way, and the WWE Universe would once again be forced to confront the man they despised. After the WrestleMania disaster that never happened, Steven Seagal's name became a curse word backstage. For years, wrestlers told stories of his arrogance, his dismissive attitude, and his refusal to respect the craft. But then, in the mid-2000s, rumors started swirling again. WWE was chasing ratings. The Attitude Era had ended, and the company was trying to recapture mainstream attention. Executives whispered, "What if we bring Seagal back? Controversy sells." When word leaked that Vince McMahon was entertaining the idea of giving Seagal another shot, the locker room revolted instantly. Randy Orton, Chris Benoit, and even John Cena reportedly made it clear, if he walks in, we walk out. The message was crystal clear. Steven Seagal was banned, not by contract, but by the Brotherhood of the WWE locker room. Despite being blacklisted, Seagal never admitted defeat. In interviews, he continued throwing shade at professional wrestling. On one late-night talk show, when asked if he'd ever wrestle in WWE, Seagal smirked and said, "Why would I waste time pretending when I've spent my life doing it for real?" Those words hit the wrestling world like a steel chair to the skull. Legends like Bret Hart and Ric Flair publicly clapped back, calling Seagal ignorant and out of touch. But behind the scenes, what truly fueled the hatred wasn't just the words, it was the disrespect. Every time Seagal dismissed wrestling as fake, it felt like an insult to every superstar who had broken bones, torn muscles, and risked their health in the ring. One man, however, never forgave Seagal, The Undertaker. Years later, in rare interviews, Taker admitted that there were a few outsiders he couldn't stand, people who came into WWE without respect. While he never said Seagal's name directly, insiders knew exactly who he was talking about. Stories say that Taker once told younger wrestlers, "If you ever act like Seagal, you won't last a day in this business." That became part of the locker room culture, the Seagal rule, respect or be gone. By this point, the WWE Universe had fully turned on Seagal too. Fans remembered his disastrous promo, his arrogance, and the way he treated the wrestlers they loved. On fan forums, Seagal's name became a meme. He wasn't remembered as the Hollywood tough guy anymore. He was remembered as the man who thought he was above WWE and got humiliated for it. At one point, WWE even leaned into the controversy. During a backstage comedy segment, Kurt Angle joked about an actor who thought he could fight but couldn't take a suplex. Fans instantly recognized who he was mocking. The crowd erupted with laughter. Steven Seagal had become a punchline. But let's dig deeper. Why was Seagal so hated when other outsiders like Tyson, Mayweather, and even Ronda Rousey were embraced? The answer is simple: respect. Mike Tyson may have been unpredictable, but he respected the business. He sold storylines, he hyped matches, and he put over Stone Cold as the face of WWE. Ronda Rousey came in as a legitimate fighter, but she humbled herself, trained with wrestlers, and gave everything to learn the art of storytelling. Floyd Mayweather even let Big Show tower over him, selling the drama for the crowd. Steven Seagal? He refused all of it. He didn't sell, he didn't respect, he didn't bend. And in WWE, that was unforgivable. Years later, backstage producers revealed that the original WrestleMania plan for Seagal was never to have him dominate. Vince had secretly planned for a shock ending, where Seagal would be humiliated in the ring, either by The Undertaker or Stone Cold. But Seagal refused. He demanded to win. He demanded to stand tall. He demanded the spotlight. That refusal destroyed his chance. And when the truth came out, fans realized that Seagal had robbed them of a potentially legendary WrestleMania moment. Imagine the pop if Stone Cold had hit Steven Seagal with a stunner. Imagine the roar if Undertaker had chokeslammed him into the mat. Instead, the fans got nothing, and that disappointment turned into resentment. By the 2010s, WWE had fully moved on. A new generation of stars, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, had taken over. But Seagal's shadow lingered. In one infamous shoot interview, CM Punk openly mocked Hollywood tough guys who couldn't last 5 minutes in the ring. Again, fans knew exactly who he was talking about. Seagal had become a symbol of everything wrestlers hated: arrogance without respect, ego without humility. And the hatred wasn't just backstage, it was cultural. Every time his name popped up in relation to WWE, the internet exploded with jokes, memes, and disdain. So why was Steven Seagal the most hated man in WWE? Because he broke the unspoken law of the locker room. He walked in with arrogance. He dismissed the art of wrestling. He refused to respect the veterans. He denied the fans the moment they deserved. In an industry built on brotherhood, sacrifice, and storytelling, Seagal chose himself. And in WWE, that's the one sin you can never forgive. Steven Seagal came to WWE thinking he would be worshipped like a king. Instead, he left as the most despised outsider to ever step foot in the company. Not because of what he did in the ring, but because of what he refused to give: respect. And that is why, even today, the WWE Universe will always remember Steven Seagal not as a hero, but as the most hated man in WWE history.